Do okay. So Harry, thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, you're welcome, Sam.
Now, as always, why don't you give us a quick introduction to who you are so people know who they're listening to?
Yeah, I'm Harry. I am a recently graduated PhD student, and I'm just trying to, look at the wider world out there that's like life science adjacent. And yeah, I obviously know you through doing a venture capital competition recently, which you ran. It went super well for me, and I think you as well.
Hmm.
And yeah, just exploring really.
Yeah, congratulations on that for being a part of the winning team. It was really good the work you guys did, and I'm sorry that we couldn't provide more of a prize. I sometimes feel a bit like
Yeah, don't worry about it.
guilty about that, but
Yeah.
yeah, once the ball's rolling a bit more with the competition and stuff, we definitely haven't forgotten about it. But so why don't we start at the beginning? So just graduated from your PhD. Like before that, before doing a PhD, do you have to do a master's or do you not have to do one?
I don't think you have to do one, but
Did you do one?
I did, yeah, I did.
Okay.
So I started doing biochemistry at the University of Kent, and then
Okay.
I was kind of like, you know, umming and ahhing about whether or not to continue
Hmm.
in science. I mean, I was still like really curious, and I think that's one of the key things that you need to have whilst you're doing science is curiosity. And I thought there was more for me to explore and more for me to learn. So I decided that doing a master's was a really good way of doing that. Because also when you do a master's, it allows you to um, maybe like specialize a bit more as well, which is
Mm.
kind of ironic me saying that because I did my master's in neuroscience, but ultimately I went into immunology. So I mean, whilst I specialized, I did so in a kind of a way that it took me in a direction that I didn't necessarily expect at the beginning.
Hmm.
But through my research in my master's, I was working on a protein that was linked also to the immunology of yeah the wider immunology system. So then through that and like talking to professors and stuff, like I found a really good project that I ended up not writing my thesis on, but that was my kind of into an immunology lab, which took me well actually to Germany from the UK, and that was a whole experience as well. But yeah,
Hmm.
that's essentially step by step how I got
Hmm.
to it.
Okay, cool. So you started off doing your bachelor's in Kent, the
Yes.
University of Kent, and
Yeah.
that's at Canterbury, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nice. I only went to Canterbury like for the first time last weekend. Lovely
Oh,
place.
cool.
Really nice
Yeah,
place.
it's
Like
good for the amount of time for that a bachelor's degree is, but any
yeah.
longer than that, I don't think I could have handled it.
Yeah.
It's quite small, but it's very charming, and I think it's like I don't know, it's mostly students. Like
Yeah.
when you stay there in like uni holiday time, it's so quiet. But
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, very charming, very nice
Hmm.
campus,
Yeah, it
all
kind
that
of
stuff.
I went to uni up in York and it kind of reminded
Uh,
me of York in a way because it's like quite medieval and
yeah,
like
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, okay, cool. And so in your bachelor's you studied biochemistry.
Biochemistry, yep.
Okay.
So that was mostly centered around. I mean, you do like a kind of. I think everyone does the same stuff: biology, biomed, biochem. They all do similar things, but then as you go through the years, you start to specialize in like proteins and more of a kind of chemical, biological focus in terms of you know how different enzymatic processes happen and that kind of thing. And yeah,
Hmm.
it's kind of maybe slightly more. I mean, obviously, in the name is more chemistry related, but yeah, I don't know. For me, like it seemed more. Um, I mean, it was more interesting to me, and I think because of the focus on proteins as well, which I find really fascinating in terms of the misfolding diseases, which is what led me into neuroscience in the next step as well. I was really interested in that, so that's why I chose to do it.
And before we get into why you decided to go on to do the masters and things like that, like how, in general, how was your university experience? Like, were you there for 3 years?
Yeah, 3 years. Yeah.
Okay, super. And did you get involved in any societies or anything like that?
I did, yeah.
or sport?
I did. So I did like some like language societies, and also boxing, which I tried
Okay.
for a bit. But I realized I'm a bit of I didn't like the the overall atmosphere for me was like it was like unnecessarily aggressive. And I was like, this guy was shouting at me as if I was like Rocky Balboa, but I'm just
Yeah, yeah,
some kid who's trying how to learn how to like bounce on my feet properly, and it just
yeah.
um, I don't know. It just felt like a bit too boisterous. Like I don't know.
Hmm.
Um, so I didn't stick with that. Um, and yeah, overall, I really liked it. I mean, I think I I got as much of it out of it as I wanted,
Hmm.
so I can't really complain there. I think because my sister's recently just started at university, so I've like
Okay.
hearing from her a lot of the same kind of anxieties and the worries that but
Mm,
like through
mm,
someone else's eyes, and it's quite interesting, really, like how um, how yeah, I mean, it's really about what you make of it in terms of
hmm,
how much you put yourself out there, even at the very beginning. Because it's, and I mean, a lot of people see it as a clean slate. Like some people need that, some people
mm,
don't need that. But yeah, yeah, I think if you go in there and like commit to being yourself, I think it can't really go wrong. You'll find
hmm,
your people and you'll find what you like and what you're passionate about. And yeah, I saw some people who fell there because I think that there's being yourself is hard sometimes, and people don't feel confident doing that. And if they don't meet the right people at the beginning that bring that out of you, um, then you can kind of give up. And that I saw that happen. And I mean, thankfully, I'm blessed to have a really good group of friends who keep me grounded. And so I never really felt uncertain in that respect, and always felt comfortable being myself. But yeah, it was overall a really good experience.
mm. Yeah, some people can have a really rough time and like get really lost. Like
Mm.
we were in it's quite a pretty unique time really because I'm looking back at my own experience. Mine was kind of like kind of got totally shafted because um I started uni in 2019 and then like
Oh yeah.
6 months later there was no more uni and then it only came back like um well, I kind of got saved because I did an exchange. Otherwise, it would have been my final year, and like obviously, final year is like, I mean, no one's doing anything. Everyone's heads down. But yeah, so it just meant that like for the majority of the time, you couldn't really meet anybody.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but in the beginning period of like the freshers and stuff, like it's a bit of an intense like
yeah,
time because you have to
totally.
you're like in this new place. Everybody wants to like appear a certain way and like
Yep.
appear their best. And um,
Mm,
yeah, there's some people had a really hard time with like Freshers Week
yeah.
and stuff like that. And
This is why also I mentioned like it depends on who you meet as well, because if you're a certain type of person, you're not maybe so exuberant.
mm,
And if you find yourself interacting with people who, I don't know, like they have a certain way of socializing and standing out from other people by standing on other people, and you as a person who's maybe less um, self-forward, then you tend to get, you know, affected by that more, and it can kind of affect your confidence and your ability to feel like you're succeeding in this thing, which,
mm-hmm.
is kind of important. But, at the same time, I think if you really break it down, that there's so many other opportunities for you to like grow and be yourself at university. This is why I think that society is really important, because you tend to find people who are more like-minded, and
Yeah, 100%.
you can find a community in that.
Yeah, I think most people who really got a lot out of uni, that's kind of what they did. Um they they went and joined a society, like found their people almost,
Mm,
like
mm,
people with similar interests, similar like disposition, and then they like completely flourished and like took a leadership role, organized events, and that taught them a lot about how to be
yeah,
responsible. And whereas some of the people who had a harder time were those who kind of I kind of struggled to find people like them, and I think and partly because they didn't go to like they didn't do any sport, or it's if
Mm,
you have to be sporty, like they didn't go out and join those societies and stuff.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, but it's funny you mentioned the thing about boxing because yeah, it's a funny one. Like I also tried it once, but like I quickly realized I was totally fucked because I'm like quite a small person, and so it's just totally kind of
I
like
mean, that could be the thing that throws off your opponent, though. I mean, they
yeah,
don't expect to fight against someone taller, taller than you.
yeah, it could be. I just felt like I was always going to be like outranged. Like I was
Yeah,
always going to
sure,
be like having to like storm through the hail of gunfire to actually do anything.
sure.
Um, but
I
no,
think
it's
Pacquiao, I don't know if you know boxing, but like
uh-huh.
there are some small guys out there that do well. Not to
Yeah,
say that
but they
you
they
shouldn't.
always aren't they always fighting like other small guys?
Yeah, well, that's true. I think at our level, probably, I'm assuming you were like just doing it for a little bit, like me.
Yeah.
You don't have the chance to have weight classes, so
Yeah, I
it's
did it for a little bit. But I did it when I was like in high school.
mm,
And like it was at this local, well, like kind of local gym in this like bad area of town, and everyone there was also like super nuts.
mm.
So I was like, oh. But then after that, I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu instead, which I found like for a
I'm thinking
smaller
about doing that
person.
actually. There's a gym just down the road from me.
I think it's great. I can
Yeah.
like 1,000,000% recommend it. I mean, I don't want to be like one of these people who like they've listened to the Joe Rogan podcast
I
like
was
twice and
literally
now
just
they're
about to
like,
say, yeah,
oh
it's like
yeah, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Like, but
it's
that
getting a bit
said,
toxic in that
yeah,
respect, I
exactly,
think.
and it's a bit cliche. But that said, it is genuinely quite good because first of all, it's a super intense workout. Like,
Mhm.
I think it's usually like 2 hours you're there for, and like in the final like half hour, you have to do like sparring and stuff,
Mm.
and like all of that, like sort of trying to attack each other and stuff.
Sure.
It really exhausts you and stuff, and it's really
Yeah.
like it really is sort of super physically demanding. So it's a great work. Like you can substitute it for going to the gym basically on the nights that you go there, and then like the techniques they teach you, it's kind of like almost like chess for fighting in that like it makes you feel like if someone was being aggressive to you that didn't know how to those techniques and stuff,
Mm.
you'd be super fine because
Sure.
it like there's say someone tries to attack you, right? Not that this is likely to likely to happen,
Hey, you never
but
know.
in the unlikely event that it did happen, and you knew how to like put them onto the ground and then like get them into like an armbar, which is basically what you like really like make their arm really painful.
Sure.
Um, when you go to these things, you quickly learn like, oh, if you don't know like the textbook counter to that, like chess, like if you
Mhm.
don't know, oh, how do you respond to this move, you're like totally fucked, like because it's like chess in that way that if you just do whatever seems intuitive in response, like they're
Yeah.
going to have anticipated it and you're going to get
Sure.
checkmated pretty quick. So it's pretty good. And I could definitely recommend it. And on that front, like I'm super curious to know, do you like also earlier than uni experience, like in high school, like so did you always know that you wanted to go down like a more sciencey path? I mean, for some people it's kind of a really natural thing because they're just really like quite good at it and they go, oh, like I'm good at this, I enjoy doing it,
Yeah.
that's what I'm gonna do. Like, what was kind of that part of your life like?
Yeah, I think I've always been into science and nature. I think really it started through like David Attenborough documentaries and
Hmm.
those kinds of like Blue Planet. I was always curious about the world around me. I think from my mum, she was like always like I don't know, she'd always take me like to forage for mushrooms and like go I don't know, yeah, all that kind of thing.
And
So
whereabouts in the UK are you from, by the way?
I'm from Surrey.
Okay, okay.
Like yeah, blessed to be surrounded by like beautiful nature.
That's in nature, yeah.
Um, yeah, and yeah, I think just through that really, um,
Mm.
I was just yeah, I've got really interested in the world around me, and so then when I went to when I was in science classes, I found it really interesting to learn about things that I maybe saw around me, but you take it for granted that like I don't know, leaves are green, and then as you learn more about chlorophyll and the process behind that, you start to it kind of unlocks the world around you through understanding. And
Hmm.
yeah, just those processes really, for lack of a better term, like tickled me. Uh,
Hmm.
and I got, yeah, just into science through that.
So you kind of had a natural affinity to it, and
Yeah,
then it was kind of a natural path for you.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I see what you mean because so I'm from I probably told you this, but I'm from Eastbourne, and it's like there's
I know.
it's kind of not surrounded by nature, but you're like right next to
The Seven Sisters,
yeah,
super
the
nice.
Seven Sisters, and then also the sea.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like quite in the countryside. It's not like,
Mm,
it's not a little village and stuff, but compared to London and like, or even Brighton, to be honest, like it is still quite in the countryside. Um, and so like I see that massive effect that's had on me in terms of if
mm,
I'm in London for too long, I'm like, oh, I'd like to go on a hike, or I'd like
yeah.
to, or whenever I come back here, I'm like, oh, this is so nice and it's so quiet and
Mm,
um, it's so nice to look at this sea and it really, I think, leaves a big impression on you.
yeah, sure.
Okay, cool. So you had like a natural affinity to it, and then it kind of made sense that you'd pick
Yeah,
that for
exactly.
uni. And then okay, did you do A levels or IB?
Yeah. I did A levels. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Um,
So you
the
did like
classic
sciencey
kind
A
of
levels and stuff.
yeah. So I did at like AS. I did biology, chemistry, geography, and then business studies. Well, actually,
Hmm.
economics. Sorry. Um,
Hmm.
and then I dropped the economics and just did biology, chemistry, and geography.
Okay, so
Because
so
I
you kind of got a flavor of doing something else. It felt like you maybe didn't like it.
no, no, I just not that I didn't like it. Well, I mean, I think to be honest, the failure there was the teacher was not like great.
Mm,
I think
such an
her
important thing.
it totally is because also, another aspect of why I continued down the path I did is like my biology teacher, my chemistry teacher, they were so enthusiastic, so passionate that it really brought me into um, the world they were trying to teach, and also it makes you believe in yourself, because if they're able to make you enjoy something, you can have more fun with it and start to, use the knowledge that you gain in a way that serves you because you have that confidence. You can make connections and feel confident about that, and feel empowered through that.
Hmm.
So it just, yeah, in a way, kind of greased the cogs for me to then start questioning more, learning, more complex concepts, and yeah, I guess like the path of, I mean, it makes it sound like it's a passive process, but the path of least resistance was for me to continue
Hmm.
down that road
Hmm.
and do it at university.
Yeah, but I mean, I totally get it because for some people, like, there's a very clear, like, they like this thing, they're good at it, it's going well, like, it makes total sense to go in that direction and stuff. And then yeah, with the economics teacher you had, it makes a huge difference with how passionate someone is about something. And
Mm,
it's why, like, in VC, one of the things I love is that you get to speak to people who are passionate about what they do all the time. And
mm,
whenever someone's passionate about whatever they're talking about, it makes you kind of like excited about it and like, oh, this is really
yeah.
cool. This is really interesting. So if you have because I had a sort of opposite situation with my economics A level where the teacher we had, she was like, she just loved it.
Mm,
And so because she just loved it, she broke everything down in a really digestible way and like made everything make sense and was just quite engaging to listen to. Whereas yeah, I had some teachers who like clearly like had absolutely no interest in the subject, and it was just like
mm.
painstakingly difficult to listen to them. Okay, so you then you applied for uni, and did you just apply to do biochemistry or?
Yeah, yeah, it
Okay,
was
cool.
like,
Wow, so you really knew that was what you wanted to do, and when you're in when you were applying for unis, did you think like what you wanted to do? Like in your life, like did you think like, oh, I want to become like, what do you do in that field? Like did you have ideas around, I want to be a scientist or like,
I definitely thought about it, but I didn't think about it as much as
yeah.
maybe other people do.
Hmm.
Not to say that I didn't at all. but I knew that it was a kind of almost I knew that it was a world I wanted to be a part of, but I figured that the specific role would become clearer later, which, I'm a hypocrite when I say this, but I think it's probably not the best way of doing it.
Hmm.
Because that's pretty much what I did. Obviously it's great if you know exactly what you want to do and then spec into it from like a young age. But at the same time, you have to be flexible to whatever life presents you.
Hmm.
I think that's, and especially now when there's so much uncertainty around different industries, like being able to be flexible is like super important. Not that I was really thinking that consciously about that at the time, but yeah, I suppose I figured I would just do um, academia for a while and then pivot into industry.
Hmm.
And I also was aware of the fact that, within science, you gain a lot of skills, a lot of, non-research skills that are useful in a wider context. So you're not, unqualified to then move into other industries. I think that,
Hmm.
um, you know, it's a great certificate of intent, doing even a bachelor's, master's, and then PhD. All of those things show that you're, you know, a at least semi-intelligent, and can work hard, juggle projects. You're a manager. You're a, you know, intellectual. You're in charge of your own thoughts and confident in your ideas, etc., etc. There's a lot of things that a lot of hats you have to wear to do that, and I think that's the skill and the benefit of doing it.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, lots of transferable skills, I guess.
Mm.
Um, okay, it makes sense. And so you thought, well, like I'll maybe go into academia, and then you get all these transferable skills, and you could potentially do something else after it. And like, how did your thinking around that like change as you went into uni? Did you because I mean, no one thinks about much anything in the first year. Oh, the other thing I was going to say as well, that you mentioned is about having like a something that you know you want to do that you can spec into when you're young. I think the huge trouble with that is that like it's so difficult to know what you want to do,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
and there's like, also like, not really. I think one of the most efficient ways to know what you want to do is do lots of different things, and then like
Mm.
just off the sort of experiential feedback that you get from
Yeah,
that, like, oh, I interned at a bank and felt like, oh, it was a bit meaningless. So then I interned at like, I don't know, an NGO and felt like it was super meaningful, but it wasn't like it wasn't fast paced enough. Like bouncing off different things, I think
yeah,
is quite a good way to figure it out. But then, like as a young person, like
yeah.
you don't
You
you
don't,
don't
you
really
don't.
have much exposure.
Well, yeah, I think that there's something to be said of, like the environment you're brought up in, because I've seen, um, like some of my friends, they're in a household it breeds self-confidence.
Mm,
They'll constantly be, discussing topics that are maybe more intellectual, and it allows you as a child or a teenager or whatever to like give meaning to those experiences that you have. Um,
mm,
like, uh, I don't know, like doing a internship and then, working out through that what that means for you in later life if you were to do that, and like working out your place in the world. And other people don't necessarily have that opportunity to have the feedback from a parent or whatever, um, and learn to question those things and learn to seek those things out. It's
yeah, true.
yeah, I think, I don't know. Also, perhaps, I don't know. I mean, I've discussed with my friends as well, like around, like public versus private school. I went to
Hmm.
public school, and I had a great time. I think it's great, but also having interacted with and spoken to other people who went to private school, I think that maybe they ask you to be a bit more critical, and you learn those critical skills, um, through different means, which maybe are more effective for some people. So there is that too, but. yeah, I think having those experiences and the exposure to different worlds, different industries, um, at a relatively young age, I know I have a sense that it's still kind of rare. I don't know if people get to try a bunch of different things before they've even gone to university. I think that's
Hmm.
kind of something that happens then. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, I think partly it's the school and somehow the parents too to like help you learn that. But yeah, as I said before, like all my experiences were telling me that you science is something that I would probably enjoy later in life,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
hence why.
Yeah, yeah, because no one's even thinking about it at that age. Like,
Yeah,
no one, no, you're
I was
not
just playing
thinking.
video games,
Yeah,
like
you're just
with my
hanging out
friends.
and like thinking, oh, what's going on at school and like
Yeah,
who's who and
yeah,
you're not thinking about like, oh, I need to make sure that I try as many different things so that in 10 years when when I'm like ready to have a career and stuff, I know
yeah,
exactly what it is that I want to do and that I can start doing that thing as soon as possible. So that can be as good like
yeah.
it's
I
very
think
rare.
it looks good on the CV thing. Like no one thinks about
No one
that.
thinks about it, yeah, at
Yeah,
all. And I think the people who have there are some people who are like quite rare that haven't weren't actually thinking about that, but some of the people who were doing that at the time,
yeah,
you kind of look into are like, oh, so like why did you do that internship at 16 and like how did that all start? And often it's
mhm,
like, oh, someone told me I should do it.
yeah,
It's not like they were like woke up one day and said, ah, this is something like they didn't get this wisdom come down from God to them.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, you do get some people who are super like. Sometimes I think about Harry Stebbings' journey, and he seems like someone who figured out like super quick. Oh, like this is what I like. VC is what I want to do, and like I'm going to make podcasts about it. To do
Mm.
it. But anyway, so then you go to uni, doing the biochemistry, and what do what does that mean? Going like, what do biochemistry students do? Like what? Yeah, what was
Good
like
question.
your day to day like? Because you guys work in the lab and stuff, and
I mean, at that point, you do kind of like a lot of, I guess, you do mini projects at that point, and I think they're all to give you like a brief experience with different techniques that you would use, like PCR or doing ELISAs, or which are ways of probing different scientific questions. So then when you go to move to doing a PhD or a master's or whatever,
you're prepared.
yeah, you can at least say like I have some experience with this because I mean the
Hmm.
expectation is when you do a master's or PhD, like you'll be learning more stuff, more techniques, or at least brushing up and becoming confident with those things as you're working. But at least having a familiarity with it is really important. So we were doing yeah, a lot of different practical tutorials on techniques, but I think the most important thing you can learn is beyond like the theoretical like foundations of whatever avenue of science you're going down. Like learning how to uh, plan projects, how to do that in a way that's will breed valid results at the end, and yeah, I mean being a competent and ethical scientist
Hmm.
basically are the kind of the most important lessons that you learn at least at that level.
Okay, so you're kind of learning how to be a scientist in a
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
Okay, makes sense. And what like what's the subject matter in biochemistry? I guess you're looking at the chemistry of organic like
Yeah, it
plants
was
and
yeah, so it was
animals.
at that point mostly human. But
Okay.
we did a lot of we also did some mouse work as well. But things that are research relevant in a way. I think
Hmm.
if you want to look at animals, you have to go down the veterinary route and because
And that's a
yeah,
whole different thing.
yeah, a whole different thing as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Because they're
So
all
so
different systems.
you couldn't do biochemistry and then say, oh, actually, like the veterinary like undergraduate.
Yeah,
Cool. That's like a decision you make at the undergraduate, like you split off
exactly.
before.
Yeah,
Okay, okay, okay. So
yeah.
you guys are looking mainly at human sort of biochemistry.
Exactly. So really, the the biology of like the glucose cycle, the Krebs cycle, all these things that like energy generation, nerve um, nerve signal, yeah, the enzymatic reactions of um, pyrolysis and yeah nerve signaling. I mean, there's again like at a certain point you become very specialized, so you know you keep unlocking whole new libraries of terms that are hyper focused on whatever area you're in. But at that level, you're um, just learning what there is out there
Mm,
and particular region of biochemistry, biology um, most interests you. Uh,
okay.
and yeah, so I did like kind of general modules. So like protein structure and function, bioinformatics, neuroscience, immunology, um, and yeah, just enough to understand basically what all those things are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then learn the core concepts that are within that. And
Okay.
yeah,
And that's kind of preparing you, like preparing everybody to split off into their own little
exactly.
domains.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And so for you, how did that play out? So, there you are, maybe like you're in your second year, you've settled down at uni a little bit more now. Like I'm curious to know how you were thinking at that time in terms of, or maybe not second year, maybe your final year, because
Mm.
how did you come to the decision to do the masters, and like how did that play into what you were thinking about what you want to do with your life and career and stuff?
So I wasn't totally sure that I wanted to continue at the end of my bachelor's. So I chose to go and work as a research assistant
Okay, so you
for a
took like a year
time.
out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Okay, okay.
yeah. Um, and yeah, I was working for Imperial, doing like
Mm-hmm.
it was like a study investigating occupational asthma in laboratory settings,
Mm-hmm.
particularly with mouse work, which was actually a really fun experience. And I had a lot of autonomy to like plan the experiments that were happening, and it was great. And I, through that positive experience, thought that it would be something that I wanted to do more. Um, but yeah, and then from that, after having that experience, I thought, yeah, I'm going to continue. That's when I did the master's degree.
Okay, cool. And so what about it do you think made you want to continue? Just that you really liked it, or did you find it particularly fulfilling? Like, why do you think you decided? Yeah.
Yeah, so I found it really enjoyable that like I could um, you question whatever research subject I was doing, and like constantly learn, but then have the ability to you know have the confidence and the freedom to plan experiments and to guide what I was doing, and then get paid to do it as well, because that's one aspect you don't really know about when you're an undergraduate student. You have no concept of um, it as a job, like how that
Mm-hmm.
really works and how that feels. But just having I think it's a really unique um, industry in that you can feel like you have a lot of freedom to choose your direction based on what you're looking at, um, and then get a salary at the end of the day as well. It's kind of unique. So I really thought that it was something that I wanted to do more of, at least get further, because you're limited if you just have a bachelor's degree. So you need to go higher up the ladder. And I mean, some people can go from doing a bachelor's straight into PhD, um, but I think you need a year in industry, and there's like other things that at least help that happen, because it is tougher to do. So that's why I
Mm-hmm.
chose to do a master's degree, because it makes you somewhat more qualified and more likely to get a place.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you did the year sort of working in industry, and you thought, okay, I actually do really like this. This is what I want to do.
Mm.
And then you set out to do the masters. And like I guess you applied for that in maybe the winter, and then you got it all lined up and stuff. And then
Exactly.
so that was that a year master's then you then
That
did.
was a year's master, yeah, which is like, I don't know. I think if I could do it again, I would probably have said to do a 2 year master's. I
Hmm.
think you get a lot more from a 2 year master's. It's kind of a, I don't know. I think a 1 year master, depending on what you where you do it and what you do, I think that you can get more from in terms of what's important for science through a 2 year master's. Just you have more time to do research.
Hmm.
You have more time to like fully flesh out a research project. Maybe to a greater degree of completion than you can in. I think it was like 6 months or something that I had in my master
Wow.
to do.
Yeah, super short.
Yeah, and I remember at the time I had a meeting with professor um, to kind of, I was essentially scoping out labs to do my project in, and I said like, why should I? Well, he said to me, why should I take a master's student? Um, and I was like, well, I have 6 months to do this research, which I think is a really good amount of time to get to grasp of something and can contribute to the work in the lab um, and like drive projects for you. And then he turned around and said, "Well, actually, that's not any time at all." And it hit me then, the naivety of my perspective, I think.
Mm, mm,
Um, and then having done a PhD, you can see how little can be done in 6 months, depending
mm,
on how your research goes. But
mm,
also how much you can do as well in 6 months if you have good leadership um, a good, a project that just works. Sometimes you get them and it's amazing, but
mm,
sometimes there's a lot more grinding that's required, and like unpicking different issues with your data or your experiments or whatever. But
mm.
yeah,
Yeah, and then because also in those in that time you're doing the masters, you also like have to be looking for the next step, right? Because it's only so
yeah,
short that you know that oh,
basically, yeah,
like I have to be because I guess in your shoes you were then looking into the PhD route and you probably have to apply for these things and like
yeah,
that takes a long time and I don't know if you had
exactly,
to
yeah.
do interviews, but yeah, so it's like amongst all of that stuff, the actual time you get to focus on the work you're doing is even more diminished.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's
Okay.
really fast and furious. Like
Yeah.
you, it's really not any time at all. That's why,
Hmm.
again, yeah, 2 years is probably nicer. Maybe, and yeah, also it's another year wasted, so to speak, before you can start whatever you want to do um,
Hmm.
in the real world.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Okay, cool. And so, before you said that, you then went to do your master's in, was it neurology, you said? Um,
neuroscience. Yeah,
Neuroscience. Okay. And so, like, why did you do that? Like, how did that process happen? And then, like, you then went to do something different in your PhD. So,
mm,
right? So,
yes, exactly. Yeah,
yeah. So what happened there? Like, why did you choose to do it in neuroscience, and why did you not continue down that path?
I started really finding the biology of misfolding conditions, protein misfolding conditions, really, really interesting. And
And what is that?
so that's
Like,
conditions
it's
like,
probably super complex to explain, but like,
yeah, no, it's things like Parkinson's disease
okay.
or Alzheimer's, things that are you know mainly caused by a dysfunction with how a protein folds, and then the knock-on effects of that, whether it be the proteins aggregating, forming plaques, and you know then affecting the biology of the body. So I really found that interesting, and I guess I just wanted to learn more about the wider neuroscience space because I just had a module in my third year for neuroscience, and it's not really enough time to get fully into the space, I think. So
Hmm.
I, yeah, wanted to dedicate more time to that.
Okay, cool. And was that something you touched upon during your year as like a research assistant or not really?
Not really, no.
Okay.
I did the research assistant work with that lab specifically because when I was between my second and third year, I had like I did a summer project with the lab and had a really good time there.
Okay,
And
okay,
then when I graduated, they happened to be looking for a research assistant, so it lined up really well. Um,
okay, okay.
and
Super.
yeah, it was a great opportunity to, yeah, as I said before, learn more about what it meant to be a research scientist.
Okay, cool. So that makes sense. And so then you go to do the masters, doing the neuroscience, and how did that evolve into the PhD?
So that was down to my project in masters was around this protein called progranulin, which has an effect on the calcium channels in Parkinson's disease, familial Parkinson's disease. It causes them to open much more readily than they would do in a human without with a person without that mutation, and it causes you know overactive signaling essentially, which is why people get the
The
jitters,
shakiness.
shakiness, and yeah, just kind of taxes the overall neurosystem a lot more than in a person without that mutation. And that protein, you know, it was quite central to it was very central to my work at in neuroscience. But there's a whole other role of progranulin in in the immune system to do with like target recognition in immune cells, and yeah, like receptor processing in T cells for antigens. And that was the work of my PhD lab. And I was talking to the professor there, and we kind of got talking about this aspect. And I saw a way of migrating that into an immunology setting, because that was another thing that I, again found interesting at biochemistry, um, at a biochemical level. But I suppose I didn't have as much time to investigate properly
Hmm.
whilst doing my undergrad. And then it really was, I guess in a way it was a leap of faith. Like I just thought it would be an interesting project to do. And another aspect was that I wanted to do my PhD abroad because it's not something I'd done before. I hadn't lived in another country
Mm-hmm.
up until that point, and I saw um, the PhD as the last chance to try that in a way that wasn't going all in on something, because I think it's still like somewhat of a transient period in your life where you don't have to commit super hard to living in a certain place because it's still in an in between. And then if I enjoyed it, living in Germany where I was, or wherever else it might be, yeah, I could do that with a degree of confidence because I've done that before, essentially.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, super. Makes sense. So at this point, when you're looking at doing the PhD, like how old are you
I
at that point?
was 26.
Okay, cool. And so and how are you thinking about like were you thinking, oh, so I think then maybe I'll do the PhD and become a researcher. That's like what I'll do.
Mm,
Like
yeah.
how had your thoughts on career and your like what you'll do in your life evolved by that point?
Yeah, so I by that point I had more of a concrete idea of what I
Yeah.
wanted to do because you have more exposure to the world. You meet peers who maybe have done the same thing,
Hmm. Hmm.
or walk that same path, and where you can go. So I had some idea of the fact that I probably would maybe work as a postdoc, and then I was fairly confident at that point I didn't want to be a professor,
Okay.
because the kind of the pyramid of becoming a bachelor's, PhD student to postdoc to professor is you know, such a hard route to walk because there's so few positions at the top. And I think that again, like goes into why maybe I'm looking at not working in academia now. But
Hmm.
the world itself is very bottom heavy, and I just didn't enjoy the politics of it ultimately. But it's jumping ahead a little bit. But I figured I um, would, yeah, probably work as a postdoc and then transition into working in industry. And
Okay.
yeah, like
Okay, super. So you saw the route as, I'll go do this PhD, then do and what is a postdoc? What does that mean?
so that's essentially, um, I would say, like as close to being a professor as you can be without actually being one. So you have
Okay.
a degree of autonomy in terms of what you're researching. Obviously, you have the oversight of the professor of whatever lab you're working in, but you have your own projects and you can delegate work to students if you have them. Some labs do, some labs don't, depending on size and funding and whatnot. But yeah, you're kind of just a person who's highly specialized in whatever field you are in,
Hmm.
and has the ability to really innovate and be creative with science in a way, even though it's dictated by natural laws, not to be grandiose, but you can be really insightful because you have so much experience, and that's what you're
Hmm.
paid for as a postdoc, just being able to come up with ideas and yeah, lead project teams, and just be an expert in your field.
Hmm. Okay. Well, sounds quite good. And so are you teaching, like, because when I think of professor, I think of someone teaching people. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so
I
do
mean,
they
there is
do?
that aspect.
Okay. There's that
Yeah.
aspect too. Okay. Cool.
So, I
Yeah.
mean,
And
on that subject, I think, um, again, it depends on the contract you have as a professor. I think some have are that they're like mandatory teaching hours, just being part of the university. But
hmm.
I think in industry you don't have that, and that's another thing which attracts people. I mean, aside from the fact that you're paid better, I think in industry, which
Hmm.
is definitely attractive. But um, yeah, you're also as a postdoc teaching, even as a PhD as well. I did a lot of teaching, which I found I was quite good at, but I didn't necessarily enjoy it because
Mm.
um, I'm quite sociable. I like talking to people. I like connecting with people, and um, I found, I think I was a little bit. All the students did really well on my modules and stuff, but we spent most
Nice.
of the time just like chatting, and
Okay.
it was quite conversational in terms of the way that we talked, and I taught. Um, and I don't know. I think it was good actually, ultimately, but I don't know if I was like I was like actually a teacher, I could get away with such a laissez-faire attitude
Yeah.
towards
Yeah.
teaching.
And like not to jump ahead too much, but
Mm.
what's that like? Because I've not like it must be when I'm thinking about it, I'm like, oh, like imagine being a teacher. Like it must be kind of strange, at least at the beginning, to be like, oh, now I'm now I am
Yeah,
delivering the like I have
exactly.
the class. So what's that like to be like a teacher? Like who were your students and what was it like?
I was teaching master students and medical students,
Hmm.
and it was quite weird at the beginning because I was like, I'm
I'm the position of authority here. Like
yeah,
what's going
exactly,
on?
exactly, and it was funny. Being like it was a lot of responsibility because you have to really be sure about what you're saying to
Yeah,
them.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Like
yeah,
all
I
these
was.
people are listening to you, looking at you, like, tell me what's going on.
It was kind of like seeing behind the veil in a way because
Hmm.
as a person who's been in education for so long, you're now the person who's giving the lectures, giving the classes, and I mean, at least for me, I'll be honest in saying like there's so much uncertainty there.
Hmm.
There are moments where you're like, um, I don't know, like you're crafting the lectures and as you're delivering them, you doubt yourself sometimes, and people ask you questions you don't know, and you have to try and be honest about that because you don't want to say something that's wrong.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's
Yeah,
yeah.
so what happens, like, sorry to interrupt, but so what
I don't
happens
know.
when someone asks you a question that you don't know? Would you just say, like, oh, I don't really know?
Well,
Like,
to be honest, like at the beginning, I would, I would think about it, and it would kind of derail my lecture. But I think with all these things, I think honesty is the best course. And in a way, if your teacher was like, actually, I don't know the answer to that question, but I'll check it out and we can have a conversation. That's actually really refreshing to me, at least.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
so I kind of tried to do that, and I would say,
Okay,
you know what, I don't know, but
I'll find
I'll,
out.
yeah, I'll find out, and we'll have a chat about it, and
Hmm.
yeah, I think it kind of, and again, like anything that bridges the gap between student and teacher, I think is really refreshing. I mean, some of my best experiences at school were when my teacher treated me like an equal, um, and makes you have a sense of respect for yourself because it seems like they respect you, and I think that I try to bring that to the lessons. So in that, and it felt good. It felt fun to do it, but it's not the world for me. Teach
Mm.
like full time.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing to do. Like, and you've got all these people that you're super you probably feel super responsible for, and
Yeah, definitely,
it seems like a lot of work. I mean, I guess it's different from being a teacher at a school, but and stuff because that seems like really tough.
definitely. Yeah.
But and then so how big was the class?
Ranged
Like
from like
10 people or something.
I think the smallest class was like 8 people to 20.
Oh wow, that's quite big. 20 people is quite a lot of people.
Yeah, it was small.
So you,
It was big for sure. Yeah.
so you
Yeah.
have to like and you'd have to like mark their papers and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the like not obviously not the official exams and stuff like that, but like the interim.
Well, actually, I mean, you would because the professor I worked for, he was doing he was running the module, and I think that's my only experience of it. But I don't know.
Hmm.
He was kind of delegating modules. I mean, I'm sure that well, if I'm thinking about my bachelor experience, the practicals weren't run solely by PhD students. There were, the professor would be there, um,
Mm-mm.
but I felt qualified to do it. So I don't think in that sense it wasn't bad. But I would be marking the work that was done in my module, and then he would kind of look at my comments and then you know you know take or cross my in terms of agreement.
Hmm.
So there was that aspect, and I think the most annoying part was the fact that you had to like set up for the like you'd have maybe a week of experiments that you'd have to plan for, and there's so many moving parts, and you know it just it was quite annoying, especially when you're stressed about your experiments for your project.
Yeah.
It's kind of there were often times as well, like just before holidays, so you want to leave your project in a good place for when you go away. But then also you have like this packed week where essentially you have no free time, and it was kind of frustrating. But and I guess that's why I didn't love teaching so much because of that. But the people part was good. I like
Hmm.
that.
Hmm. Yeah, because you're also doing your own, like your own, you're also being taught yourself.
Yes,
Like,
yeah,
so
exactly. Yeah,
you
yeah.
have all that of your own stuff to do at the same time. And then, so that's what I want to get into really is that, like, so the PhD experience itself. So first of all, you moved to Germany to do it. And
Mhm.
so whereabouts in Germany were you then living? And like, how was that whole, like living in another country, that whole part of it?
That was yeah, it was crazy. Just because you talked about your experience before doing your final year in university during COVID, but I moved like country
Oh
during
gosh.
COVID, just before it would have been 2020 October. Um, so that was when everything was getting really serious. So then I moved there and everything was closed down to Düsseldorf in Germany. Um, Thankfully, I landed in like a really great flat with people who I don't know. The whole building was like a little community, so I never felt wanting in terms of like social interaction. But if I wanted to go out to a bar and meet people, I couldn't do that.
Hmm.
So it was intense, and also claustrophobic in some senses, but in a way, it like broke down the experience of moving away into like kind of a manageable size because there was so much of living in a new place that I didn't get to experience immediately. That I could almost experience that, drip by drip
Hmm.
as the country became more open. And by that point, I would feel more settled and whatever. So it was kind of a blessing in disguise in some senses, but definitely came with a lot of, cons.
Hmm. Okay, and so you were there, and how long were you there for? Like 4 years?
4-ish years, yeah, 4-ish
Okay.
years.
Okay, so I guess yeah, like you got to went there in 2020, and so by the time you left, it was like completely normal again, and you
Yeah,
had I guess mainly from 2020 to like 2022, you had the gradual restoration of each part of social life. Okay, cool.
yeah.
And so is it something that you'd like? Can you see it? Do you think you'd like to live in Germany at some point again in the future, or
I think I
um?
would, yeah. I really loved it.
Mhm,
I think, I think it can be tricky to depending on the industry you're in. I think it can be tricky to make it because language is quite important, and I speak reasonably good German, but I'm by no means fluent.
mm,
And I think that could really hamstring a person trying to look for a job in a different country. I mean, I know that
mhm,
places like France are, quite the language is really important there. So if you're
mhm,
coming from the UK speaking only English, you might have a hard time.
mhm,
Um, and yeah, it's definitely something that I'm thinking about in the future. Even
mhm,
maybe not Germany, but somewhere else in Europe, like Switzerland.
mhm,
Um, uh, yeah, it depends really, but
mhm. Yeah, and I did my year abroad which was only a year in France, and definitely one thing I miss about that is like how available good food was. Like,
yeah,
you could there's a bakery, all a million bakeries, and each one of them you can get like
mm,
a fresh sandwich for like less than
the-
€5. And
yeah,
in
it's
London
crazy.
it's like, oh, first of all, forget about getting anything fresh. And then well, if you do want something fresh, it's gonna be like £15. You're
Sure.
gonna have to pay like through the nose for it, and then it's not gonna be that good. It's gonna be tiny. So um I imagine in Germany as well, you're probably quite spoilt in terms of food
Yeah.
and
Honestly, it was great. Like it's kind of tragic, but like one of my favorite places was the supermarket, just because. I mean, the one that I was nearest, like already was is kind of crazy. It has like a Michelin starred restaurant inside of it. It's like,
Really? That's what
yeah,
I'm talking about. Like, and then you come over here and it's
yeah,
like, what's going on?
yeah. I've got like Tesco extra just down the road. I'm like, oh,
Yeah, yeah.
like it had everything. And I love cooking, so it was like kind of like amazing for me because I had everything I could possibly want in one place. But
Yeah.
then that was one of the more jarring adaptations to moving back to the UK. But yeah, I don't know. It's a nice place to be.
Yeah, and the quality, I mean, in France, when you go to the supermarket, you'd be like, oh, this is really serious, this stuff. Like these guys
Mm.
really care about what they're eating. You had so much choice, the quality of the ingredients was really high, and like
The focus on the locality as well was like
yeah,
really
you could
important.
tell that people really took this seriously. Like this wasn't.
Yeah.
It made you feel like when you went to Tesco, like, oh, this is kind of some kind of joke, or like people were just like, oh yeah, get whatever,
I
and
was trying
like
to, I was trying to like make myself enthusiastic about it, but you'd be walking down the aisles and be like, oh, this is just not as good.
this little
Like,
shit. Like
it's
there's
shit.
no like yeah, in France they have it. There'd be like a whole aisle just dedicated to one type of certain thing that was like
Yeah.
the highest quality, and they had like this all this like super emphasis on organic stuff and stuff like that. So
Mm,
yeah, I definitely miss that, and just the availability of good food. Like I don't know why it's so hard in London just to get like just a decent like sandwich. I'm not even talking
mm,
like anything gourmet. Like in France, you could go to any bakery and get like a emmental, like ham,
mm.
baguette, easy, like easy,
Yeah.
happy days. I like, yeah. Anyway,
I
I'll
think
go on
I
a
think
rant
it's a
about it for
cultural
hours.
thing, to be honest. I don't know. I think I have a friend who lives in Amsterdam,
Mm,
and like I would often go between him and I'd also go visit him on the weekends because it was super
mm,
close. And like there's so many food markets there, and what I realized is like I think that I mean Germany's not like the best by any means in terms of work-life balance because I think it is still they have quite a high amount of work being done there by people employees, but there's a greater focus on um, working to live as opposed to the other way around. And I think if you
Hmm.
go to a
Hmm.
place like London, like people, the amount people work hard there. Not to say that they don't in
Hmm.
Germany, but it's hardcore. And I think convenience is a lot more important to people in London, maybe. So like, I mean, also salaries are higher as well, so people will pay £15 for a fresh baguette. But
Hmm.
at the same time, people kind of will walk past the closest wasabi and pick something up on the way home, and that's job done.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Hmm.
there's
Hmm.
less focus.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know how some people do it, like because, I mean, it's maybe a broader point about London, but like, and then there's like no space as well, so like you
Yeah,
can't have like a garden and all this kind of good stuff. But I mean, it's the same in Paris and Berlin probably. But
yeah.
okay, yeah. Anyway, so did you do the PhD in Germany, and like, why did you and you chose immunology because of this like overlap between the that mutation for people who have like
Yeah.
Parkinson's and stuff. Um, and so how did like your thinking about career and like those kind of things evolve over those next 4 years?
So I over the next 4 years, I was working on that project, the progranulin project, and it was it developed into it's somewhat developed, but that project was passed on to someone else. I stopped
Hmm.
working on it, and then got focused on the virology side of immunology a bit more, just because I mean this is something that I'm not really, I question about my experience, but maybe at that point in my PhD, I was a little bit too passive and I kind of just took projects because they were given to me,
Hmm.
and then started to dig into it a bit more. But yeah, I really started to work more on infection dynamics within. So I was working with mice, which is a whole thing, but yeah, my focus transferred to that and super fascinating, frustratingly complicated, but nonetheless really interesting.
Hmm. The working with mice thing is something that's just like bananas to me. So how does that work? Like,
Mm.
so like, yeah, how does it work? Like, do they have like a box of mice and then you like pick one or two of them out and then like, yeah, like, how does the whole thing work?
So it's a very there's a lot of red tape. So
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that people don't necessarily understand is like how well this feels weird to say it, but like how well the mice are treated.
Yeah.
There's so much regulation around you know the conditions and if you want to do a new experiment you have to write to the government to have them say yeah this is ethical to do,
Hmm.
and really there's this like core tenet of doing animal experiments which is like um, replace, uh, reduce, and I forgot the third one now, but essentially just the idea of um, if you do need to do do you need to do experiments on animals? That's the
Hmm.
first thing. If you do, like, how do you minimize the amount of uh, animals that you need? And then, is there something better to do it in?
Hmm.
You know, and yeah, like overall, like there's a lot of care taken in that sense, but it's still, kind of it feels weird. Like it never feels normal.
Yeah, yeah.
Like in the first experiment I did, like I don't know if you know like the Harry Potter films, but there's that scene where that Harry has the first experience with the Dementor,
Uh-huh.
and he needs some chocolate to like calm himself down. Like I felt very much like that. Like I was so shaken,
Okay.
and I needed to like. It was just yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever I and it never felt normal, but it was a kind of a necessary evil for lack of a better term.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
yeah, no,
And
it
so
was
where did like like where do they have like a central place where they keep loads of mice and then
Yeah,
so then
they
you
have.
apply and then they say, oh, you can have so many mice.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole system. Like they have like a facility on the campus where they have all the animals, and then you know go through the system to book animals. You can
And
either
what
work
kind of
with
other
them.
animals do they have there?
They
I
had
guess like
dogs.
insects maybe, or
I
maybe not. Maybe that's not so useful.
They had flies and fish as well.
Ah.
People use fish for doing kind of developmental studies a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
also some neuroscience work too. Um, there's flies, like fruit flies, and then mice, dogs. Um, Depending on the size of the institute, like I went to a place when I was working in for Imperial. You know, some places have like monkeys. They have uh, like pigs, sheep, like all kinds of stuff.
Mm.
Yeah, but at the place I was at, they have they had macaques
Wow.
and dogs. Yeah,
It's just like a zoo.
yeah. Well, kind of. Yeah, except you can't go to see any of the exhibits unless you
Yeah, yeah.
experience.
And
But
how, like, because like, how do they keep? Like, they have to have like a macaque enclosure then with like,
yeah, well, they have
un
rooms. I mean, because when you go to the zoo, like presentation is very important, but
yeah, yeah.
it's less so when essentially they're just kind of meant to be comfortable.
Okay. Yeah, because you probably like if you're doing a scientific experiment, like you probably have to make sure the macaque isn't depressed because that's gonna like
Yeah, yeah,
affect things,
totally, yeah,
right?
totally. Yeah, I mean,
Um,
with the dogs, for example, they would take the dogs on walks,
yeah.
like around the campus, and people that would go and visit people's labs and whatnot. So it is important for sure,
And
especially with mice as well. Like, they have like daylight cycles for lights, and
mhm,
they try and keep noise going, like not loud noises, but like something to stimulate the animals, basically.
mm. And I'm surprised it's dogs. Like, what kind of things do they do with the dogs?
I mean, so with dogs, I mean, partly they're used because big beagles in particular because they're quite like trusting animals. But there's
Oh,
also,
jeez.
yeah, I mean, yeah, but also there is like a similarity, particularly with the immune system to
Yeah.
the humans, and it's just like a bigger system to
Mm-hmm.
test different concepts in. I mean, you have to like
Mm-hmm.
if you're, for example, in clinical trials, you'll often build up like with people will do cell work at the beginning to test it, even if a theory works, and then they'll do it in mice or and then getting bigger, they'll do dogs and chimps and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of gains, um, relevance to a human system.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Cool. Makes sense. And in these experiments, they're basically the basic like principle of what we're trying to do here is see if this new technique helps solve some kind and it's all viruses you're working with or
Yeah, for the most part, yeah, all
okay.
kind of infection immunology. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then so to flip over to your interests and how those are going. So at that point, like you that's what you were really interested in was
Mm.
like viruses and virology and that kind
Yeah.
of area.
Yeah.
And why do you think that was? What was it about that that really like oh you fascinated you and
I think it was just exposure. I mean, I was just, again, like I'm very curious as a person.
hmm hmm
I was in that world and started to see the interest there. And as I learned more, I got more fascinated, and I saw how much there was to investigate. It's always like looking at the questions that are unanswered,
mm,
or the things that are maybe outdated, and challenging those things, and investigating the kind of the corners of science that haven't had light shed on them. And
hmm
that was really what I was doing. And yeah, kind of there was a lot of questions in my lab that were kind of um, unanswered, and yeah, I saw it as my kind of opportunity to do that.
And what kind of were some of those questions that maybe you felt like um oh I'd love to be a part of the the solution, or like the team finding the answer to this question? Like, what kind of things are we dealing with?
Um, can I actually say, do you mind if I nip to the loo quickly?
Oh God, yeah, of course. Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah, go, go, go. Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. No worries.
Not ideal, but maybe we can cut that part
No,
out.
it's definitely fine. Like I really like podcasts that are super like authentic. So like
Yeah, sure.
I'll just cut the gap, and
Is
yeah, it's good. It's good. I think I hate podcasts that are like super well produced and like um it's like you're watching a BBC show or something like that. Like I kind of don't think that's the point of podcasts. But anyway, jumping back into it. So yeah,
yeah.
you were.
Sorry.
I was asking what kind of questions were like pulling you into to the subject.
So I think for me, what's really important is to see how my work can be impactful. Uh,
Hmm.
so I'd like to try and put it into the context of the wider world, like how will this help? And the main project I was working on was like attenuated viral vaccines.
Hmm.
So uh, I was working on a virus that had a mutation in its spike proteins,
Hmm.
and it became less sticky essentially. So I was looking at a way. I was looking at whether or not that would weaken the virus to a point where it wouldn't infect well, but it would prime the immune system to recognize
Mm.
that protein, and whether or not that would cross over to the one you would find in the wild, so to speak.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Um, yeah, and a lot of my projects were around that. So whether or not it was a virus that was um, more, again, for lack of a better term, sticky, or less sticky. I was doing research on those kinds of things, and then seeing how that would affect the immune response of the mice that I was working on.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, cool, makes sense. Um, and so how does this all translate into where you are now? And like, you know, now you're thinking about like maybe transitioning into the VC world, or like
Hmm.
where is it all at now in terms of thinking about what you want to do?
So I think the reason why I opted to maybe investigate non wet lab roles. So like, in the lab, um, is I wanted to try and use the skills that I gained through research, through studying at like master's, PhD,
hmm
bachelor's, in a wider context. So maybe get um, I could bring those skills to a wider range of projects. Whilst still like learning about them, still being curious, still being able to investigate the different areas. But with the separation of not doing the research myself,
hmm
but being able to help support those concepts, those projects, into a place where maybe they can actually be brought to market and help people more readily. Um,
hmm
so yeah, that kind of with that was really the main driver for me in terms of not pursuing a kind of academic role or maybe
hmm
an industry.
And why did you want to do that? Is it maybe because you wanted to have like a bigger impact, or you didn't like
Yeah,
the working environment? Like what kind of drove that decision?
well, I just thought that when you're researching, like you can do your work is really like as a researcher is really important because
hmm
you're driving the development of concepts and innovation through the research you're doing, but it's like hyper focused. I mean, some people have a massive reach because their work is so important. It maybe forms the concepts of a completely new area, or is the breakthrough that means you can start developing things to a um, a, down a direction that you might not realize is possible. But that's not the path for everyone. Like not everyone can do that, and by working in a non-lab setting, like in consulting or in VC, you're still close to that. So I feel like I can use the skills that I gained, the knowledge that I gained, um, to have an impact on those things, and also help drive them towards the ultimate goal of like helping people, making it you know
hmm
because before that point it's just an idea, right? Like if you can bring a concept into something that can actually have a real world impact, that's at least for me that was always the goal.
hmm
And yeah, I suppose it wasn't the way that I thought I would do it when I started out on that journey, on this journey, but it became the one that is most interesting to me because I saw the reach you can have with working in particularly like early stage life science VC, which is probably the area that I'm most interested in. But also in policy or consulting, you can help drive these projects through your insight and your knowledge, um, yeah, for clients,
hmm
and yeah, contribute in a different way, but no less important way.
Okay, super. And so, um, you moved back from Germany, so now you're back in the UK, and so now you're kind of exploring that path and what that could look like.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think that like COVID, it's a bit of an interesting time in the whole um, the world at the moment because I don't know. There's a lot of talk about the impact of AI and all this kind of thing, and
Mm,
hiring freezes and whatnot. There's a lot of uncertainty there, so I'm not going to say it's like the most ideal time to be looking for a job,
hmm
especially if you're trying to transition maybe slightly. But it's really, it's been really um, it's been quite an enjoyable experience thus far. I mean, doing things like the competition have really shown me that if you want to do something, you just have to try. And
hmm
you can look for unconventional experiences and get experience wherever you can. But it's been good. I've had a lot of positive interactions, and I I think once upon a time, I wasn't always the most confident in terms of my own uh, position within whatever it is I wanted to do. So, like, I think within science, self doubt is quite a common issue for people.
hmm
just because you're constantly challenged on your ideas. But I feel like I've grown into a place where I, I believe that I deserve to succeed, but
hmm
also feel like it's a matter of time as opposed to something that may or may not happen.
hmm
So
hmm
that's been quite you know, an important development, at least internally for me.
hmm
Like have the confidence to feel like that's the case.
hmm Yeah, I think that's super important. Like being confident and some of the people I've seen that have done best are those that have like been able to maintain a sense of self-confidence in spite of like hard times. I have a really good friend who like there's a few times where something kind of bad happened. Like for example, at his he did the IB at the sort of A level kind of time of your life, high school time of your life, and like it did really bad in the first year, and then but wanted to go to a great uni, and so ended up having to take like 2 years out to do so,
Mm.
and like. A lot of people kind of I knew kind of wrote him off at that point and felt like, oh, this guy is like it's not going well. Da, 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 da. And it's if you're in that position, it's very easy to do that. Like if at any time in life, if you're struggling, it's very easy to be like, oh, overwhelmed by the
Yeah,
stress and concerns that oh, this has
definitely.
all gone bad and I've made the wrong decisions. And um, but those who do really good, like with my friend, he always just kept believing in that it was going to work out and that like um
Mm.
yeah and that despite how it might look like we're gonna make it through. So it's a really great thing that you've developed that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really is. It's a skill to take criticism and not have it feel personal. I,
Mm-mm.
I think I don't know, something that I've struggled with in the past. Especially if you stand behind your work, and you put so much of yourself into it, particularly when you're doing. I mean, I think it's probably a universal thing. I'm not going to try and say it's like a science only thing, but from my experience, when you're doing a project and maybe things don't work for a long time in terms of your research, and you have to go into a meeting and you don't have anything positive to say, like, oh, this worked and I found this new thing. It's like, oh, I tried this and it didn't work, and then the next week,
Mm-mm.
like, I tried this, oh, and it didn't work either. And depending on who is your supervisor and who's like hearing that information, and based on their responses, you can really like flagellate yourself because things aren't working, like as if it's somehow your fault and not the fact that
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
investigating something which is really out of your hands. Like if a thing in if a kind of biological process doesn't do what you want it to do, you know, within certain degrees, it's not going to do what you want it to do, and
Mm-hmm.
therefore
Mm-hmm.
what you're trying may never work. And it's not necessarily a failure on you. It's just because that's the way the dice has been rolled. Yeah, and I think being able to realize that is quite important. And it's not always easy to come to that realization for people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 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 and definitely. And like, I guess working as you work as a PhD student, like you are on the cutting edge of things. So like
Yeah,
most things aren't going to work. Like that's just the nature of it. Um,
and some of the stuff you try, you're the first person to have done it,
yeah,
so
ever. Yeah.
you don't know. There's no kind of, obviously you can base some of it off like the wider literature, but you don't always have that. You have
hmm
the
hmm
benefit of being able to draw on something, so it's kind of yeah, there's always trial and error.
hmm Super. Well, going for a while. So should we wrap it up there? I think it's been great to hear about you and your journey so far, and like your best of luck with the next steps. I think it's like maybe a daunting time, but also I guess quite exciting in that like it's
Yeah,
new stuff for you. Um, so one thing we started doing recently with guests before the end of the episode is if you'd like to leave a quote with us, like a favorite quote you have, um, that'd be really good. It puts you on the spot a bit.
yeah, you put me on the spot a little bit. I think I would say, hmm, I think that I think belief is the maybe the it's not going to be very succinct, but I think belief
There's no ways.
belief is the main ingredient, and I think everything else falls into place around it. I think
Hmm.
as long as you believe in yourself and you can look at yourself in the mirror and say that you tried your hardest, then whatever happens is the right thing that happened. You know,
Hmm. Hmm.
it was always meant to be.
Super. Well, on that bombshell from Harry Ward, you guys have heard it first. So thanks so much, Harry, for coming on. Really, really interesting to like hear your journey, and like it always reminds me of how little time an hour and a bit is, because like we didn't really get to talk that much about the PhD that stuff, and so definitely would love to have you on again
Yeah, for sure,
for
man.
another few rounds of questions. But yeah, thanks so much. It was brilliant to hear from you, and hopefully if people listen to this and they'd like to reach out to you about, transitioning from a PhD or any of your experiences, that's okay with you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Super. Well, thanks again, and
Yeah, of
thanks
course,
people for
Sam.
listening.
Yeah, thank you very much, mate.